June. My name is Greg Heffley, and I live in a superhuman society. 80% of the population possesses some kind of uncanny ability known as a quirk. And not to brag, but mine's pretty cool. Basically, I can create anything by drawing it. I can't make anything living, so no plants or animals, but beyond that, there are basically no limits, which means I was pretty popular in school. And speaking of quirks, I should probably tell you about my friend Rowley. Rowley is what's called quirkless. He's one of the few kids who doesn't have any kind of power, for whatever reason, though he still wants to be a hero. I've tried to break it to him that you can't be a hero without a quirk, but he doesn't seem to care. Oh yeah, I guess I should explain what heroes are. When quirks started developing about 150 years ago, people started taking advantage of their powers to commit crime. These people are known as villains, but when the villains rose up, heroes rose to meet them. If you're a pro hero, you get a ton of fame and popularity, plus a pretty nice salary. And ever since I learned about quirks, I've wanted to be a hero. And to do that, my first step is to get into UA. There are a bunch of schools for heroes in training, but UA is by far the best. All the best heroes went there, including Strong Steve, the #1 hero. If you want to make it big, you have to get into UA's hero course. UA has other courses too, for non-heroes. I keep suggesting to Rowley that he should apply for those, but he insists on applying for the hero course. Rowley, there's never been a quirkless hero before. Then I'll just have to be the first. Rowley, I don't want you to put yourself in harm's way. Look, Greg, I've always wanted to be a hero. Strong Steve inspired me. So why is it wrong if I follow my dreams? Rowley, you don't have a quirk! You know what, Greg? I'm done with this conversation. When is he ever gonna learn? Right now, I'm sitting in class with Rowley next to me. UA entrance exams are still a year away, so I spend most of my time in class thinking about becoming a hero. I train once in a while too, but I'm pretty confident I can make it into UA with a quirk like mine. Suddenly, I heard a noise outside. I turned and looked out the window only to see a humongous shadow. It was a villain. Villain attacks are pretty commonplace around here, but a hero always shows up before things get bad.
Greg Heffley, quirk, sketch. He can create anything he draws, as long as it's inanimate. The object will imitate the properties of the drawing, which also means any imperfections in the illustration will also appear on the real object.
This stuff happens often enough that the villain wasn't really worrying me, but suddenly it started moving towards the school. Everyone freaked out and moved to the corner of the room as the shadow villain got closer. Now I was starting to freak out. There was no heroes in sight, and with a villain this powerful, there was no way anyone here would stand a chance. Everyone else in my class had quirks, but they weren't as cool as mine. There were mostly your garden variety weird quirks like making your body fold up like paper or having a cactus for a head or something. My point being, I couldn't rely on any of them to take this villain out. Suddenly, something happened that made our situation even worse. The monster had burst through the wall and was now looming over us. I thought we were all dead for sure. But suddenly, somebody stood up, and it was the last person I expected. It was Rowley. He was holding his metal water bottle and was staring right back at the monster. Before I could tell him how stupid an idea it was, he started running. Somehow he managed to land one good hit on the villain's eye, but soon the monster had him in its grasp. But as his shadowy fingers tightened around Rowley, something emerged from the villain's face. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was Strong Steve, the #1 hero in the country. With one punch, the monster was down for the count. Kid, that was reckless. If I hadn't shown up, you could have gotten killed. But your selflessness gave me time to get here before anyone else got hurt. So thanks.
Strong Steve, quirk, bulk up. He can change his muscle definition at will, allowing him to become incredibly strong or very scrawny in an instant. However, he can sprain his muscles if he uses his power too much. Although his quirk is suited to combat, he has trained extensively to be able to deal with any kind of rescue situation, making him worthy of the title of #1 hero.
1 year later, It's been a year since the villain attacked the school and not much has changed. To be honest, I had completely forgotten about this journal until today, but I decided to pick it back up because today was an important day. Today was the day of the UA entrance exam. I walked up to the enormous school staring up at its looming towers, but something else caught my attention. There was this pretty cute girl also heading into the building. I decided to approach her, figuring this might be my only shot. Considering how many kids applied, it was unlikely I would see her at UA. I walked up to her and introduced myself. Hey, I'm Greg Heffley. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Holly Hip. This is my quirk. Pretty cool, huh? I can create anything just by drawing it. I looked up, but she had walked away. That was weird. It's kind of rude to walk away in the middle of a conversation. Wow, I can't believe she didn't want to be around the raging narcissist. What an inconsiderate bitch. Anyway, I headed into the massive auditorium and took my seat. Rowley had told me he was coming, but I couldn't see him anywhere. The building was so huge that he could be anywhere, so I decided to put it out of my mind for now. After a minute, a guy walked on stage. He looked familiar. Good morning, applicants of UA High School. You may know me as Pro Hero I Am Spooky, but I am also a teacher at the school. Today you will be taking a practical exam. Allow me to explain the rules. There are two parts of the UA entrance exam, the written exam and the practical exam. The written exam is basically your regular entrance exam, a bunch of boring math and English questions with some stuff about superheroes. I probably did about average on that, but I knew I would shine on the practical. Spooky explained that we would be in a huge arena filled with robots. Certain robots were assigned different point values, and the more we destroyed, the more points we got. I was expecting that to be it, but he said there was a second part of the exam. His tests would be taking place in an arena made to look like a couple of fake city blocks. That may sound surprising, but UA gets a ton of money from the government, so they can afford to do stuff like that. Anyway, along with defeated robots, there were also dummies hidden around the city. They were supposed to be civilians, and so we had to find them and bring them back to the entrance safety to get points. The civilians were only worth 1 point though, so I decided my best bet would be to just beat up as many robots as I could. With that, let the tests begin. Good luck to you all.
I am Spooky, quirk, spine tickler. By touching someone, he can create immense fear in them, making them lose the will to fight. Because he needs to make physical contact to use his quirk, he often works alongside other more combat-focused heroes who can help him get close.
We were all led towards a pair of huge double doors. There had to have been at least 300 of us, all standing in front of these doors. I was already impressed by the amount of people, until the kid next to me told me that there were one of 10 testing groups. That meant there were 3,000 kids, and only 40 get in. But I didn't have time to dwell on that, because all of a sudden the doors opened. I was able to bring a notebook and pencil with me, so I knew right away what to do. I drew up 2 stun guns, and sure enough they appeared in front of me. They might not be strong enough to destroy the robots, but they should at least disable them, which Spooky said was enough to gain points. I went around blasting the robots with all those, and while they didn't completely blow up or anything, most of them stopped running, and that was all I needed. I hadn't spotted anybody else I knew yet, including Rowley, but if that kid was right, chances are he was in one of the other testing groups. I needed to put him out of my mind and focus on points. After a while, I had racked up at least 30, but I couldn't stop thinking that everyone else was doing better than me. Suddenly I heard a voice behind me that I recognized. That should be about 40. 40? It looks like everyone here is doing better than I thought. I started to panic. There was no way I could make it into the hero course at this rate. Suddenly I had an idea. I took out my notebook and began drawing. It didn't need to be perfect, just big enough to get the job done. As soon as I lifted my pencil, it appeared. It was a bomb. I wasn't planning to hurt her, of course, but if I distracted or trapped her, I could take her out of the running, which meant more points for me. Aiming carefully, I chucked it at the building behind her. Ow!
Holly Hill's quirk, states of matter. By separating and condensing the molecules in objects, she can change the state of the inorganic matter around her. From creating solid platforms out of air to turning walls into liquid, her quirk is suited to almost any situation. However, objects will revert back to their original states of matter once she loses concentration.
Suddenly, I heard something behind me, like the sound of metal being crushed. I turned around. Mr. Spooky had mentioned this as well. There was one massive robot who was worth 0 points, and we should try to avoid it. I didn't need to be told twice, so I got out of there. As I was running, I saw someone out of the corner of my eye. It was Rowley. He was carrying a stack of dummies, but he dropped them when he heard something. Help! It was Holly. When I had her trapped, I accidentally left her alone with the robot. Whoops. Just like last year, Rowley started running. I shouted at Rowley to stop. He had gotten lucky last time, but here there was no strong Steve to save him. Those guns on the robots didn't look like they were just for show, and without a quirk he would be totally defenseless. However, instead of running towards the robot, he ran sideways to one of the buildings nearby. Was he running away too? He ran over to one of the buildings and grabbed a metal pipe lying next to it. That pipe looked really heavy, but Raleigh ran with it at top speed. I guess he's stronger than I thought. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Somehow Raleigh was able to dodge all the robot's attacks. He leapt onto the robot's foot and stabbed the robot in the leg. The robot's lower leg fell from its body and immediately collapsed. Rowley leaned over the robot, panting. Holly was able to free herself and rushed over to him to make sure he was all right. What the heck was that? You see, Greg, it's called not getting any pussy. It's a very common male emotion. It's what happens when you're a dirtbag and a cunt.
Rowley Jefferson, quirk, none.
Wow, that just felt dry to read.